away from the road. We're joined by other Buffelshoek vehicles, landowners, that haven't switched their car off, so you can probably hear them in the background. But you've just lost sight of her there, probably about 30-odd meters, 40 meters just in front of that vehicle. She's definitely hunting, though, so who knows? Maybe she'll come back. But unfortunately, we can't go north. But how exciting was that? Super exciting to be following a leopard. And we're fortunate we were able to get on bushwalk and on drive. So you managed to get the nice anticipation from the bushwalkers. I know what that feels like inside. And then we got to see her beautifully poised on top of the termite mound, her namesake. Okay, so that vehicle's not moving, which means she's probably very still in the long grass. Have a little stalk. Raffaele, there's potential for us to see almost 12 leopards in this area. We don't obviously see all of them. I've seen Shadaloo, Hukumuri, Tandi, her cub, Tlalamba, Tamba, Osana, Tingana. That's all I've seen. All 7 that I've seen in this area. So that is ridiculous. But apparently there's about 12 that we could potentially see, maybe even more. Well, I think that's going to be it for us. She's a little bit too far north from the boundary now, and there were some alarm calls of kudu coming from in front of us here around Sandy Patch, and that might be something worth following up on. I can just see her at the back there, in front of the car, Dave, just at the back. Yeah, I can see her head. Just punch in there. Left. There, top right of the screen, folks, you can just see her head. Switch off. I wish this guy would switch off behind us. She's definitely interested. She probably spotted something from her termite mound. We've seen her do this before. Scott or Tristan has followed her. She comes off of the elevated position and then starts moving quite deliberately in a direction, trying to sniff out. You might get a vehicle moving into shot now. They are Buffelshoek landowners, so they have full rights to be in there. And it seems that we have lost her sight. But indeed, marvelous that we were able to see the Xidulu female. We were, as you know, tracking male leopards all morning. And, well, we'll take what we can get right now. We're going to go follow up on these alarm calls coming around Sandy Patch, and then we'll probably head back towards Voyatella area and see if we could get lucky with a male leopard. How cool is that? How was Ralph looking on the camera, eh? Let's go see how he's doing, because he looked like he was so G'd up. It's probably been a while since he's seen a leopard on foot. Let's go ask him.
I was very happy, everybody, and, well, from one very exciting cat to a very exciting little grass. And this is a blue seed grass. And it's quite impressive because now at this very moment in time, all the grasses are flowering and seeding, and this particular grass here, and if I put my hand there, maybe you can see also the lovely colors that you've got coming through there. That's a little bit pinky blue, sometimes it is quite blue, and this has a very close relationship with the blue waxbill, and it's very apt because the blue seedgrass and the blue waxbill go together. Because the blue waxbill, very small, tiny little bird that we often see with the red firefinches jumping around in the thickets, and a very high-pitched little squealy call. They use this for seeding material, nesting material, and so the plant gets very nice seed dispersal, and the bird gets nesting material. Now, what's also quite impressive with that little blue waxbill, he uses the blue seedgrass to make his nest, but he also normally makes it in the thorn trees, and like a small knobthorn thicket, or even sickle bush, etc. And he makes that nice little nest where he goes in, because he's very vulnerable, small little bird, no defenses. So what does he do? He uses the plants with all the thorns as a defense. And what he also does is he very often nests next to wasps' nests. So he's got the thorns of the thorn tree, and he's got the wasps. And should anything start to come in there, a predator, try to get towards the nest, ruffles that thorn bush a little bit, and those wasps will all come out and start to sting it. So although he's a little chap, he's got some very good techniques to protect himself. And the blue seedgrass, using the blue waxbill for its seed dispersal. So lovely nesting material that, but at the same time, all those seeds get dispersed by the little bird, who takes it, flies off, and takes it to a lovely little spot where all those seeds will eventually fall on the ground, and that's the way he gets dispersed. Now, I would like Ferg just to also just pan across after he's had a look at that. Look at how wonderful this grass is at the moment. It is all just seeding and flowering. It's absolutely beautiful at the moment, and we can see each and every single different kind of species of grass. It is absolutely wonderful. We've got a lot of Aristida congesta here, or the tassel tree orm. And it just makes for a wonderful scene when the grass is in this phase. Now, Romit, you're wondering around uses of the grass, and if we make brews of the grasses here. Well, Romit, I'm thinking of the particular wild grasses that we use, but I can't think of any. I'm actually going to ask Aubrey when we start walking again for any of his local knowledge. But remember, grass species so important to us as humans. We have it in rice, we have it in barley, we have it in, so obviously for me a very important factor there for beer. We make bread out of it with wheat, and we've got the largest grass in the world being that of the common reed, also the most common, and also a lot of the bamboo species are also very large, and they're used for a lot of building materials. Think Indonesia and the kind of giant bamboos that they get out there. What makes a grass? It's got nodes and internodes, whereas trees don't have those internodes. So very important, and just a little bit of a lesson there. But I love it when we're in this phase of grass, because at other times of the year you aren't able to identify or distinguish between the different species, but at this very moment in time you can see it absolutely brilliantly, nice and easily. There's all the colors, and it's just fantastic. So leopards, well, we've also got the grasses, and for me that's important, just like those leopards. So I think we should continue along a little bit. Maybe we still a bit closer to those hyenas. We've found a little bit of our goal this morning already, which was finding some big cats, but the bigger one that we've still got, which might be more of a continuing goal, and that's finding that hyena den. I don't think we're going to find it on the first morning, so it's not a problem that we don't find it on the first time, because like I said, we need to build up that anticipation. And while we do continue with that anticipation, let's head you back to Steve, who I think is continuing on the leopard search.
Yes, indeed. As Ralph continues on his ever never-ending hyena battle search, hyena dens, we know how he loves his hyenas. We are in the Sandy Patch area and just looking around, listening. Aubrey heard kudu alarming in this area, so we're going to just have a little scratch around and see if we can find anything. But at the same time, while we were waiting to go into that Xidulu sighting, we could hear some elephants coming from sort of south of where we were, so we're going to slowly move into that direction as well. And then we definitely would like to go back towards Vuyatela area and find you this male leopard that we were tracking all morning. Justin, you want to know if there's an alarm call I dislike? Well, I don't like the squirrel's alarm call because Everyone says squirrels are reliable, but they're not. I've tracked squirrels. I've followed squirrel alarm calling many times, and yeah. I was even with, who were we with the other day? We were with Hukumuri or someone. We were with a leopard the other day, and a squirrel saw him and jumped in the tree and he was chup still, we call in South Africa. Didn't make a sound, and the leopard was right underneath him. So I've stopped relying on squirrels as an alarm call. They've got this high-pitched alarm call they do, which is 100% accurate for a bird of prey. When you hear a squirrel go, then you must quickly go look outside and you'll see some raptor flying over. Sometimes it's a hummerkop and they get confused. A lot of birds think a hummerkop is a raptor, but they are not a raptor. But sometimes the squirrel gets confused. But invariably, you hear a squirrel make that call and there is a bird of prey. But that normal sort of rattling sound that they make, I don't follow it anymore. I've stopped following that as a reliable sign. But the reliable ones, francolins, spurfowls, guinea fowl, monkeys, kudu. Impala this time of year, it's tricky because the male impala are in their rut. And so when they're running around chasing each other, the males, and herding the females, they're snorting, which is the same alarm call as what you would hear when they spot an animal, a predator. Bushbuck and Nyala kudu, all very reliable. Trying to think what else we use actually. I've never heard a warthog make an alarm call. It would be a first for me. Okay, so this is sandy patch, nice and open. Have a little look around, see if there's any sort of, let's have a little switch off, shall we? I'm going to go back while we switch off, Dave. Well, back and then switch off again, because there's a bird that's just landed there. A very nice bird indeed. Just landed on that small log there. Yeah, just punch in there and I'll tell you. Left, behind this bush. A little bit further back, up, left. Yeah, on that log there, right in the middle of that log. There we go. Here's a beautiful bird. Oh, of course, he's flown off. He got a bit spooked by the crowned lapwings. That was a ground scraper thrush. They like these open, very sort of open areas. I've had the Umkuhuma pride here before, once eating or playing with a tortoise just over there. 2 tortoises, in fact, and I remember telling the viewers, don't worry, the tortoise will be fine. And next thing, one of them was pulling the tortoise out of the shell. So I do still apologize for that. But I think just the playful nature of those cubs, the youngsters, the sub-adults, eventually broke through. I don't think a lion on its own will break through it. I think just eventually you get so fed up with the other one playing with the toy, you play with it, and then you play with it, and it was quite some interesting behavior that day as they killed the tortoise and had a second one that they were playing with that they didn't manage to break into. Just commenting to Dave, I can't believe how the time has flown this morning. I think we've been just so busy trying to find animals that we've forgotten the minutes as they tick past. And yeah, we've got a sounder of warthogs. Now, if you were a cat and you looked at these warthogs, can you see how noticeable, especially that 1 second from the left, actually the 2 in the middle, look how noticeable that sort of beard of hair is on their face. But their tusks are actually very small. But from a distance, you think, oi, that thing's got enormous tusks. I'm not going to tackle that. But you can see the tusks are tiny. So that's a kind of a fake sort of tusk, what would you say? Sort of false advertising, you know, and it gives the animal that moment of sort of deliberation or hesitation as the predator hesitates. It gives them that moment to disappear. Because a leopard looking at a tusked animal like that would think twice about it. We were watching Hosanna hunt the other day, and he came across a group of warthogs. The youngsters were quite small, but as he got closer, the warthog that ended up standing up right in front of him was an enormous male, and it made him stop dead in his tracks, and he actually just collapsed on the floor and said, "Okay, I'm done." And it was because it was an enormous pig and it had huge tusks. So from a distance, those white lines, white hair on the face, because clearly they can grow that from quite a young age, and it works as a deterrent. Doesn't always work, but every now and again. Okay, so I seem to have lost my communication there. I do apologize. We're going to go from our pigs over to James and see what he's up to.
Well, we've had quite an adventurous time since I last saw you. The car had a small fire, which was quite fun. Nothing serious. Apparently everything is okay. It's just a wire that burnt. We need to fix that when we get home. And then also we had a flat tire. Well, flattish. And I thought, well, I better change it anyway. And it seems that the spare tire, despite my efforts to check it this morning, is also relatively lacking in air. But we'll make it home, and then we'll have them both fixed. We saw some warthogs. Those are the only other animals we've seen, but it doesn't matter that you missed them with us, because of course you had your own with Steve. Oh, there's a gymnogene raiding a nest, Senzo, on that big marula tree. I'm going to stop here. You see it straight in front of us there. And I can hear an alarm calling roller. And I think that might be a roller nest. Fascinating now to watch. Those amazingly supple legs. Imagine that thing coming around if you were a small chick, just enjoying the first few days of your life, looking out into the bright blue yonder from your safe tree cavity, and that thing stuck its head in. Very unpleasant, or its foot came scrabbling in and tried to grab you and took your sibling out from next to you. Very unpleasant. You can hear baboons going ballistic. Sounds like the Twin Dams area, actually. It's a long way from here. Anyway, we'll trundle up that way and see what we can find. I've done a small patrol of the Chitwa southern boundary, hoping to find Guchava, the scaredy cat, and her baby, but I have yet to see any sign of them, and I've also never seen them. I've never met them before. Alrighty, let's go up the airstrip. Make our way back to where those baboons are shouting, but they're so far away that by the time we get there, well, it's most likely that whatever is making them upset is gone. Brizzy, you're wondering about secretary birds at Djuma and if we have any here. We do from time to time, nothing like the number that they have in the Masai Mara, but there are secretary birds here from time to time, yes. Let me keep going. Those baboons are really shouting very loudly. Ooh, sorry, Senzo. To drive relatively smartly as well. You'll notice that if I let go of the wheel, the car turns around to the left, and that is an account of the fact that there's a lack of air in the front right tyre. It's okay though. It's not totally flat. Beautiful. Still the monkey pods flower, beautiful yellow flowers, the last of the tree flowers, and of course the last of the actual flowers will be the plant that keeps on giving and that is the Waltheria indica. But this is the monkey pod, and you can eat those pods. You can take out the seeds and eat them like peas if you want to. Not particularly delicious, but not too bad. Those are the pods. And that alarm calling you can hear behind us is a starling shouting at that gymnosine. Alrighty. On we go, I think, as opposed to leopard, perhaps. No leopards. Alright, let's go back to Stivovo and find out where he's going after his very successful morning.
We have had a good morning. I mean, considering we were tracking probably 2 different male leopards and then we found a female, I don't know if that's very successful or if that's just luck. But yeah, Aubrey and Ralph were tracking that leopard along that road. I could see when we moved into the area where they were following. We got a bird of prey up there. Bird of prey up there. I wonder if we can get a good look at it. Ah, it's tricky light. Got very streaky chest. I think James might have shown you one of these this morning already. Might move around and get a better visual on the light. Sorry, Davy. A little bit more light there. It looked to me to be an African hawk eagle through my binoculars. Is that going to be better, Davy? Yeah, let's get on a little bit more around. There we go. Let's see now with the right light. Sorry about my microphone. It sits on my hip or my rib cage, and it seems to have just dislodged itself. That, ladies and gentlemen, looks to be a juvenile Bateleur eagle, but it's not the best visual of it, is it? The face looks to me to be a juvenile Bateleur. Yeah. I'm going to go with the juvenile Bateleur, being brown, a little bit of a sort of a greenish sort of face, tinge to the face. But it's hard to say, actually. Brent is saying tawny. With binoculars, it does look like a tawny. On the screen, it looks a bit wrong, but it definitely now does indeed look like a tawny. Thanks, Brent. They got a slightly different shape to the head and the beak as well, a tawny eagle versus a young Bateleur. And what you can also see is how far down the tail is extending. The tail's actually just underneath the branch there as well. Whereas in the Bateleur eagles, they don't have much of a tail. The juvenile's a bit more than the adult. Marvelous. Marvelous bird. Look how he moves his head from side to side using that sort of binocular vision. So from one marvelously big, beautiful bird to probably one of the biggest in the area, let's go to James Henry.
Well, it is one of the biggest in the area, but it's doing a very strange thing. It's just sort of sitting. And you can see it sitting on its tarsal joints, which is a bit odd. Now, I've seen other storks do this, but the saddle-billed stork I have not seen doing this, and why it should be sitting up here exposed on the wall, I'm not sure. Those baboons are still going, everybody. I'm going to carry on going. They're making what I think is a lion call. And I'm wondering if there aren't lions drinking at twin dams as we speak. I'm sorry to disturb you, my friend. See how much taller he suddenly got? Oh no, you wouldn't have seen it, sorry. You were looking at the back of my head. As Kirsten says, at least we know his legs are okay. Yes, indeed. At least we know that. Small mercies. Okay, let's keep going. Watch out there, chaps. Come on now. Move. Young males. Very confusing time of the year for them. All the adult males who were their friends until very recently don't like them anymore. Sorry, what was that comment, Kirsten? It sounded pithy. What was it? Apparently Alicia says it feels like Santa's sleigh with all the impala running in front of me. There's something very interesting over there, very quickly, behind the bush, naturally. I'm going to sneak forward, just keep the camera there. Sends. It's a baby impala, but it's a February baby. There you go. See that little thing? That is a February baby, one of the very few born in February to the second mating season. That's quite fun. Alrighty, let's carry on. I will be so deeply impressed with myself if we manage to find some lions. Will indicate that both Ralph and I are not insane after all, because we both figured the lions were round about where I went looking for them this morning. Ralph, by the way, apparently has broken a cable. Ravida, you say this is crazy driving. Ravida, no, this is fairly sedate. The crazy driving happens when we watch Wild Dogs. And I'll tell you, yesterday evening I was watching the drive, I had the sound off, and I cast my glance up towards where Taylor was sitting down here, and suddenly the screen looked like it was in the process of filming an earthquake. And I knew immediately that Taylor was very clearly driving very fast, and there's only one reason for that, and that was to try and go to Wild Dogs. And sure enough, there they were. What's the matter, Sinzel? You were just checking the wheels. Why, do you think they're falling off? You can feel the cars leaning to the right, yes. Anyway, we're not too far from home. Okay, we're back out of Chitwa. And Mrs. Vera, you say crazy driving equals Brent. Yes, well, Brent Leo Smith is not renowned for his extremely sympathetic driving of the Land Rover Defender 110, or 90 in this case. He sees it very much as a tool, which I suppose it is. But of course most owners of Land Rovers know you have to treat them with love, otherwise they break down. Right, we're not far from Trindam's, about 1 minute away, 30 seconds perhaps, if I persist with this crazy driving. They're the baboons. I heard one shout. Indigo Girl, you said James is fearless. Well, you know. Indigo Girl, James is not fearless at all. He's just a very good actor. Now the baboons have stopped. Let's carry on. That impala is looking a bit distressed, the one that Senzo was showing you there. There is the baboon. Did you see the baboon? It's in this dead tree. There. Now where is it looking? Yeah, impala's coming this way. We're not far from Twin Dams, but that baboon is sitting on Little Gowrie, which is south of where we're allowed to go. Now they've jumped out of the tree, which indicates whatever danger there was has passed. They wouldn't have shouted at a bird, they would only have shouted at a leopard or a lion. And they were going mad. Right, let's continue down here. We might still get lucky. Daniel, you're wondering about whether or not those baboons will have a different alarm call for different predators. They do. And in fact, other species are often able to interpret what they've seen. Monkeys especially, they've done a lot of studies on. And they will make different calls. Eagles in the sky, snakes on the ground, leopards both in the trees and on the ground. And apparently oh, sorry about this. I'll have to continue once we find some more signal. Let's go back to Steve.
Thank you. Sorry about James's signal, folks. And there just seems to be that one little patch there around Twin Dams that seems to lose signal. We have come back towards this Gallagher Pan here. We have one last ditch effort in this area to see if we can find any activity of one of those male leopards that we were tracking. Would be nice to find one. 2 leopards in a drive, I'm sure none of you would be too upset about. And for some reason we have got Brent behind us. Brent is coming with a cable. I'm not quite sure what Brent wants. Okay. They have a broken cable. Okay, that is Conrad. You can't see him. He's wearing camouflaged shirts and pants. Well, not pants, but his hat. Why are you giving it to us? We are not bushwalking, Conrad. We are driving. No. Conrad gets very nervous in camera. You can see he's normally quite a confident young lad. Conrad just wanted to have his first. That was your cameo, Conrad. Well done. Well done. Well, you go first then, Brent. We'll move out. You go ahead. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Conrad. Bye, Brent. Have a good morning. Yeah, we will shout if we need cable. So Brent's going to go that way. I'm sure they got a handheld. Bushwalk is clearly in that area. So if there is a leopard, hopefully they will find it. We'll go back the way we came. Otherwise, we're going to have a whole little party over there in the bushes there with the bushwalk team and us. So let's rather go find another route. Darby, I think we'll go back to Zoe's as we were discussing before. Whoa, Deborah. Yes, indeed. Conrad is very cute. And you know what, Deborah? He is in fact single. He is very single. Young Conrad. He's a very nice guy. Very nice guy. I'm running with him almost every day. He keeps me on my toes. He's rather fit. He pushes me, which is good. Sometimes us old guys need a little bit of motivation. Deborah, we're going to drive away from Conrad now. He looked extremely shy on camera there. I think that might be his first cameo. Kirst, is it his first cameo performance? For you, yeah. Well, Conrad is part of the tech department with Jared and a couple others moving around, and they work very, very hard making sure that all these things behind the scenes that you folks are not too aware about are working and functioning. So confused he was. How? I don't know if he's on Twitter. He's definitely on Instagram though. It's definitely on Instagram. Oh, Conrad. Okay, well, back to wildlife matters, shall we? We are going to go and do another little loop around, talking about wildlife matters. Let's go back to James and see how his alarm call search is panning out.
I'm rather amused by all of this. I'm very glad you've all met Conrad. He, of course, is our new Connor. Connor had the similar effect on the ladies that saw him. We found nothing further. Mrs. Zera, you say they're all gorgeous at Wild Earth. Well, as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I'm just doing one last foray along Leadwood Road to see if we aren't lucky here, which is not far from where the Baboons were. I don't know what those baboons were yelling at, but whatever it is has moved off. They may have been fighting with each other, of course. It's entirely possible. They were just shouting in some kind of internal conflict, but it didn't sound like that. Robert, I think you're asking about death out here and which animal has the most use when it dies. Well, I guess the bigger the creature... Oh. What animal dung, not carcass, has the most use? Well... It depends who you are, really. So if you're a traditional healer or sangoma, then you probably find hyena dung the most useful. That can be used apparently to cure madness. If someone is mad, you mix a little bit into their maize meal porridge. Oh, ow. Senzo's looking at me as though I'm mad. I was bitten on the leg by something. It wasn't a black mamba, don't worry. And there's a batelier over there. So yes, if you're a traditional healer, then you might think that hyena dung was very useful. You'd mix it in with your patients' maize meal porridge, hopefully without their knowledge, because they'd probably kill you if they did know, and that would cure any madness that you have. So I'm going to be taking some home. I've just reminded myself of that. Taking some home and feeding it to most of the Wild Earth crew this morning. Then in terms of other sort of uses, I guess elephant dung is probably the most used, also by traditional healers. It's used because elephants eat a multitude of plants. It's often thought that it can be a sort of general analgesic to burn elephant dung and then sniff the smoke, because obviously many plants out here have got medicinal properties, and if you're not quite sure what's wrong with somebody, then you can get them to inhale elephant dung smoke, and it'll give them a kind of generalized antibiotic, I guess. It would also quite possibly give you emphysema, but that's another story. That is a magnificent batelier, often here. They live in this area. There is a nest not far from where we're sitting. You can feel the quietness now, the mid-morning coming in. It's quite hot today. You can hear the robin and just the odd cisticola. Otherwise all is going quiet. Well, most of you are not asking any questions about this batelier nor commenting on its magnificence, simply because you are all talking about Conrad and his magnificence. Well, that's good, I suppose, if you're Conrad. Oh, one or two of you have said, I am the prettiest flower of them all. I'm not sure, well, I definitely know that's not true, but I'm also not sure what it means. I mean, when compared with the fine magnificence of humanity that is represented by Herbert, for example, I'm not sure how someone of my proportions even compares. Now Sam, you say you were back onto the biology, thankfully. You say, have I ever seen a bird pick up a mongoose? I don't think I've ever seen it actually happen, but I've seen a number of birds eating mongoose. I've seen Wahlberg's eagles and giant eagle owls, and possibly one or two others eating dwarf mongoose. So I have seen it from time to time, yeah. Alrighty, let's move on from here. It's getting a bit hot sitting here in the sun. Bushwalk is back in action. They've managed to repair their cable or find a new one. Let's go back to Ralph and find out what he did to his pack.
So everyone, yes, we did have a little bit of a problem with our pack. We had to change some cables and do all sorts of things, but we're back in business now, walking along the road here. We're heading towards Voyatela Dam. We do want to go and see if we've got some exciting tracks around the little dam there. And speaking of tracks, there are some as we're walking along here. If we look at what I'm just looking at over here, and I always like to put something down next to it just to give a little bit of scale. Now always remember, and that's Aubrey going past so that you know he's here with us, keeping us safe. There's your hand, okay? Remember, plantigrade, walking on the whole foot, digitigrade, walking on the fingers, anguligrade, walking on the tips of the toes. Now, this animal obviously has only got 2 toes, and it's obviously walking in that direction. There's the front of the track, okay? And it's quite easy to work out what animal this was, because when we look at antelope tracks, we've got the tragelaphines, which are a very big group of antelope. That's the spiral-horned antelope. And what they do is they direct register when they're walking on a normal pace. So that means their back foot steps directly in where their front foot was, forming almost one single track. Now, with this track, there's the front foot, there's the back foot. So it's an understep. It's not a direct register. And I've seen there's lots of them all around. So this is very easy to identify. It's not an inyala. An inyala is a tragelaphine with a spiral horn. They direct register. Very similar shape track. This is an impala. The very they step on the outer part of their toe, and they also don't direct register, but very similar shape and size to that of an inyala. And in fact, when we do our assessments for tracks and trail, that is one of the ones that tricks most people up. It's very similar to the mongoose versus a squirrel, or black versus white rhino. It's one of those very tricky tracks that is very common, but you can very easily get wrong. And those are the 2 little signs that we can look at. Walking on the outer part of the edges there, or on the outer rims, and also not direct registering. So very nice to see that. And another little track that we're seeing over there, and I just circle it. Always interesting to see. What we're looking at here is a completely different animal altogether. It's not a mammal, because we're seeing 1 toe there, 1 toe in the middle, 1 toe over there, and potentially 1 at the back. But on this track, there isn't 1 on the back. So, what animals, or what birds, should I say, are not going to have a toe at the back? Birds that do not perch. So this would be a bird that is a ground bird, and it's most likely to be either a dikop, or now we call them a thick knee, or one of the korans. But the korans normally slightly larger, so I would say that this is actually one of our nocturnal birds, being that of a thick knee. So once again, it's wonderful to see that we don't even need to see the animals to know that they are present, and tracking for me is absolutely fascinating. Look what it did for us this morning. It led us to Xidulu. So we're going to head down to Voyatela Dam and see if we can pick up on some more interesting tracks. And while we do that, let's head on over to Steve and see how he's going.
Dave is beaming on the back after the comments about him being the most attractive cameraman. He is smiling. I think he's just like, yeah, of course. He knows it. But he says he's got a girlfriend, ladies, so terribly sorry. Poor Dave. So we have moved more towards the west now. No idea where those elephants are. I mean, we heard them, but they've just like vanished. I haven't even seen them cross this road. So I find it amazing how such big giants can move through the wilderness almost unseen. A large herd of them coming in last night, which was fantastic to see. And it would be nice to maybe end the show with either a male leopard or a herd of elephant. What do you folks think? What would you prefer? Now I'll do my best. She'd like to see a pangolin, so Kirst, I'll show you a picture when I get back to camp of a pangolin. Ooh. Little family of dwarf mongoose is just calling here. Wonder if we will get one. They're just here in the undergrowth. Now, one jumped across the road, and then a couple you could hear scurrying in the bushes there. They're going to be very shy. Excuse me. Bless me. Excuse me in advance. Excuse me. I apologize for that. It must be the pollen in the air. Thank you, Kirst. Lisby, the tracks of the zebra that I had last night moved sort of north where we had the Xidulu female this morning, and then they seemed to cross out there as well. And then when I was coming down to this side, sort of our more southwestern part of the reserve, we had more tracks of zebra when we were going to find Tingana and where the elephants were, and they also crossed directly out on the southern side. So the zebra don't seem to be staying too long. I don't quite know why. I mean, we heard them last night. I didn't manage to find them. We got caught up in that mission to try and find a leopard around Gallagher, which ended up being at Vuyatela. So unfortunately myself and Fergus weren't lucky enough to find Hosanna last night, but well done to Taylor for getting the right area. And all through alarm calls, which is quite marvelous. And here we have our resident white-back vultures on their nest. Resident white-back vultures. And this is the second time for me, sorry about my breaks, second time for me that I've seen them nesting in marula. Most of the time they tend to favor knobthorns, tall, spiny knobthorns, which are very difficult to get into for animals looking to prey on their eggs. And they are probably nesting and laying eggs as we speak. And on that note, we're going to go back over to James, who I think has made his way to Vuyatela Dam. Let's see what tracks he has for you this time.
I have not made my way anywhere near Vuyatela Dam. I'm not sure where that comes from. Anyway, here we are. We don't have anything. We've got a couple of birds. We do have a small chestnut coloured thing in here. And as Kirsten is directing today, I don't think it's her. Where is it? I think it was a bushbuck. No. No, we didn't see it again. Sorry about that, everybody. I know that you were all dreadfully excited to see what we had seen, but unfortunately it ran away. Now we may not off-road for bushbuck. Now remember, the final day for voting for the Webby Awards is today. go to our Facebook page, and there you will find a post about the Webby Awards. 3 links there are there, 1 each to each of the categories in which we've been nominated. We're winning 2 of them. Thank you very much for those of you who voted. We are losing in 1 category to a Basset Hound, a goat sanctuary, and what's the other one we're losing to? I think we're only in 4th place in that one. Yesterday we were in 3rd place, but we were beating BBC's Planet Earth. Oh, Blue Planet. We're tied with Blue Planet. You know what? I'm happy to be tied with Blue Planet. I think that's a good place to be. But the Bassets and the goats seem to be slightly more popular than we are. Vote. Colin, sorry, go again to that question. I was being harangued by Senzo from behind. Oh, Colin, you say, will I make a speech if we win? I don't think there's anything in the world that will stop Graham Wallington making a speech if we win, and so no, I think I will defer any victory speech to the creator of Wild Earth as opposed to the minion that I am to this vast machine. So I think Graham or his good wife will make a lengthy speech. I mean, I suppose I could make an amusing takeoff, but no. I mean, I won't lie to you and tell you that I have never thought of going to the Emmys and receiving some kind of award and standing up there and giving a speech in my number 1s. While I think on these things, let's go across to Ralph, who I don't think does think of these things like I do.
I definitely don't, James. We're very different. Well, everyone, we've come down here to Vuyatela Dam, and it's quite impressive for me how it's actually changed here in this particular area. The last time I was here, this was all full of water. We would have been underneath the water where I'm sitting right now. But it does make for interesting tracking because we've got lots of mud around now, lots of different tracks in the mud here, and it can be very, very interesting because it leaves tracks and signs of all the different organisms that have been walking through here. And this one here is of the little bird that has been making lots of noise next to us and quite irritated with our presence, and that is from the blacksmith lapwing. Very sort of open sides to the toes, and also a ground bird, so he doesn't have that back toe as well. Now, if we look very closely here, we can see something else that has just been scooting along through here. It looks like a little bit of a rodent that's maybe come down for a drink. And he's scooted through there. Then over here, we've also got some round tracks, but almost side to side, on each side, one over there, one over there. This is most likely that of a terrapin. So he's been walking through there, walking through the mud, and probably struggling a little bit with the dwindling water. So that's very often when you do find them then sort of crossing and going to different little puddles and trying to find bigger water sources so that they can also then start to swim around a bit more. Because this pan or pond was full of terrapin as well when I was last here. So at this time, they may be at night, or when it rains a little bit, they will leave the pan and try and go and find source some extra water. But it's always wonderful to come up next to watering holes, because that's where all the animals are going to be coming down to drink, and then you can literally start to find everything that's been around. There was some elephant tracks over there, and you can also see over here with these obvious bigger imprints, there's elephant, and then I think with that one going in there, that looks like a giraffe that's walked through the mud here. So very interesting. But now let's do step. Tom, you're absolutely right. It is very dry at the moment, and I think we're all hoping that there is a little bit more rain. And if you come and have a look over here, we can actually see a nice hippo track. and if I put my foot in it, you can see how big their feet are. But nice to see that their toes sort of head out in front like that. And for me, it always looks like a little bit of a flower with the petals sticking out, but a massive flower indeed. So always interesting. I don't think this hippo would have hung around here for too long, because I think lying in that water over there, he would have literally just have to be rolling around in the mud. But very interesting all the same, and I love walking around the little pans. So everyone, I smell breakfast. I'm going to be heading back to camp, but in the meantime, let's head on over to Steve, who I think is going to say goodbye.
Indeed, we are also heading back soon for breakfast, but here we have the red-billed buffalo weavers busy munching on the tree. It's possible that they are collecting sticks to add to their ever-growing nest, and it is joined in the tree there by a magpie shrike. And I'm going to assume that that is a female, because the tail is not very long, or it could be a juvenile. The tail is still busy growing. You can see that all the tail feathers are not fully formed. They're still growing, so it's hard to actually sex an individual if it's younger or if it's in molt. But they're moving through the tree canopy here with all sorts of other birds in a bird party, busy feeding and assisting each other in the collection of insects. You can hear a bearded woodpecker tapping behind me. Anna-Marie, that is a good question. I couldn't rightfully tell you the last bird to move. I would assume it's probably some of the cuckoos, because they breed quite late into the season, and then maybe they accumulate towards the end and then leave. I saw a woodland kingfisher the other day at the Treehouse Dam. He's still here. The Wahlbergs seem to have in the last couple of days vanished. The European bee-eaters I heard about 2 days ago, but I haven't seen them since. But it's hard to say, really. I would assume it's cuckoos, in the fact that there are juveniles that have bred in whatever roost or brood parasite host they might have had, and then maybe they move off. But it's been a marvelous morning. The sun is warming up Djuma as we speak, and when we think it's winter, suddenly the sun comes out again and shows us that it's not actually that cold. It's going to be 36 degrees, so I want to get back and maybe go for an early run. It's been a marvelous morning. Well done to the Bushwalk team for finding the Xidulu female. I've thoroughly enjoyed being out again with Dave. It's been a while that I have not been with Dave on the vehicle. And thanks from James, FC, all the cam ops, myself. We have had a beautiful morning. And I'm just going to park in the shade here. And thank you for your cooperation, your questions, your comments. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you again this afternoon.